War and genocide. World War II is often remembered as a clash of armies, tanks, and nations. But behind the thunder of artillery and the roar of fighter planes, another war was being fought. A silent one. A war against civilians. A war against identity. A war against existence itself. As the world burned between 1939 and 1945, genocide walked hand in hand with warfare. Not as an accident, not as collateral damage, but as a calculated policy. While soldiers died on the front lines, millions of innocent men, women, and children were systematically erased from history. The Holocaust was not separate from World War II. It was born from it, protected by it, and hidden within its chaos. This is the story of how a global war became humanity's darkest crime. This is the story of how ideology turned into mass murder.
The world before the storm. The roots of World War II were planted long before the first shot was fired. After World War I, Europe was broken economically, politically, and psychologically. Germany, humiliated by defeat and crushed by the Treaty of Versailles, was drowning in anger and desperation. In this environment, radical ideas thrived. Adolf Hitler rose to power by offering simple answers to complex problems. He promised national rebirth, economic recovery, and restored pride. But his vision required enemies. The Nazi ideology divided humanity into races, declaring some superior and others dangerous. Jews were portrayed not as people, but as threats. Propaganda spread fear, lies, and hatred into everyday life. Meanwhile, the world watched. Economic depression weakened democracies. Many nations chose isolation over intervention. Appeasement replaced resistance. By the late 1930s, Europe stood on the edge of catastrophe, unaware that war would soon open the door to genocide on an industrial scale.
War begins, and so does persecution. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. World War II had begun. As armies advanced, Nazi policies followed. In occupied territories, Jewish populations were immediately targeted. They were stripped of rights, property, and dignity. Ghettos were created, sealed districts where families were crammed into starvation and disease. Walls rose, but escape was nearly impossible. At the same time, Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing units, followed the German army eastward. Their mission was simple: mass execution. Men were shot in forests. Women and children were buried in mass graves. Bullets replaced law. This was genocide by gunfire. Yet even this was not enough for the Nazi leadership. They wanted efficiency. They wanted secrecy. They wanted finality. War provided cover. Chaos provided silence. And the world was too busy fighting to fully see what was happening. The final solution. In 1942, Nazi leaders met at the Wannsee Conference. There, genocide became official policy. The final solution was born. Extermination camps were constructed across occupied Europe. Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec. These were not prisons, they were factories of death. Trains arrived daily. Families were separated within minutes. Gas chambers replaced bullets. Millions were murdered without names, without graves, without witnesses. Doctors conducted experiments on children. Forced labor worked prisoners to death. Starvation became routine. This was not madness. It was organized, scheduled, documented. All while World War II raged on, battles in Stalingrad, Normandy, and the Pacific capturing headlines, while genocide continued in the shadows. The world's silence. Information about the Holocaust did reach the outside world, but action did not. Borders were closed to refugees. Reports were questioned, delayed, or ignored. Military priorities overshadowed humanitarian responsibility. The victims were isolated, not only physically, but morally. By the time Allied forces liberated the camps in 1944-1945, the truth was undeniable. Skeletons walked. Mass graves surfaced. Humanity was confronted with its failure. 6 million Jews were dead. Millions of others followed. The war ended, but innocence did not return. Consequences and lessons. After the war, the world struggled to respond. The Nuremberg trials introduced new words: crimes against humanity, genocide. Justice was partial. Healing was incomplete. The Holocaust reshaped international law, human rights, and global conscience. It proved that modern civilization could still commit ancient evil on a scale never seen before. World War II was not only a military conflict, it was a moral collapse. And the Holocaust stands as its darkest chapter. Not because it happened, but because it was allowed to happen. Consequences and lessons. After the war, the world struggled to respond. The Nuremberg trials introduced new words: crimes against humanity, genocide. Justice was partial. Healing was incomplete. The Holocaust reshaped international law, human rights, and global conscience. It proved that modern civilization could still commit ancient evil on a scale never seen before. World War II was not only a military conflict, it was a moral collapse. And the Holocaust stands as its darkest chapter. Not because it happened, but because it was allowed to happen.